Good afternoon and welcome to our high school ELA, Instructional Materials Adoption Open House Series. That's a mouthful. It is a unique and very brand new way for us to connect with our community and our staff members to showcase what our instructional materials team is doing and to get your input. And so I'm really grateful for all of you who are joining me virtually. And my name is Kristen Oliver. I'm one of our secondary curriculum and instruction coordinators. I have the great honor of primarily supporting our ELA teachers, and I will be your presenter and your facilitator today. Before we get started, a quick note for those of you who would like to ask questions. Our team is asked to place those questions in the chat box on YouTube, and we will get to those at the end of the presentation. So we'll keep track of them, and I'll circle back around and answer your questions toward the end. And then, of course, please be sure to keep your questions to today's topic, and that way you have a good likelihood that I can answer them. So before we get started, officially, I wanted to give you the opportunity. As I mentioned, we have community members and staff members, a combination joining us today. So I did want to provide slides, bit.ly link to the Google Slides that I'm presenting, so you can refer back to those either right now, maybe make them bigger, or at a later time. So when you use a bit.ly link, you'll open a new tab and you'll type exactly as it's written. You don't need the www dot or anything. You'll type in a new tab in the URL address bit.ly / all caps ELA lowercase adopt. And that should bring you to a view-only copy of these slides. And if for any reason you're having trouble with that, you can always, I'll provide my email at the end, and I can help get you squared away on the slides. The other piece is I would love to know who is joining me this afternoon. That's one of the differences for me. Usually we have an open Google Meet with sessions with teachers. And so I'd love to get to see who's here. So if you'd like, it's completely optional. You can sign in via Google form. And that's another bit.ly link, bit.ly / all caps IL lowercase open. So I'm going to come over here and make that bigger for you, just to give you a chance. If you don't open a new URL, a new tab right now, just go ahead and jot those down for your later use. All right. The slides, I'll have a little note at the top of my slides with the bit.ly address, and then I'll show you the sign in again later on. All right. Let's dig in. So this session will be two halves, and I wanted to, yes, it's the first in our series of open house events. So I'm going to be providing you with information about one of our three finalists. Today I'm highlighting Into Literature, which is Houghton Mifflin Harcourt. But the first half, I wanted to just give you, kind of show you an overview of our journey as an instructional materials adoption team, what we've been up to in the fall semester, and then what you can expect from us moving forward this spring semester. So the instructional materials adoption process in the state of New Mexico is a 6-year cycle. So this year, we're looking at 9-12 English language arts. So that's our high school. We've got reading intervention, world languages, AP English. I might be forgetting some others, but we have a team convened for high school ELA, and that's what I'm going to share with you today. This team is charged with a pretty weighty and meaningful task, which is selecting the instructional materials that our students will use for teaching and learning of the Common Core State Standards for ELA over the next 6 years. So this is our last year of adoption, so we're still using the springboard materials, which is what our team last adopted. We'll finish out using those materials the rest of this year. And then we'll, whatever materials we adopt are what we'll begin using in the fall of 2021 for the next 6 years. So our team's whole objective is to look at deep alignment to the Common Core State Standards, which is always our end goal for teaching and learning, that our students master those standards. Our team is made up of teacher representatives from the 2 comprehensive high schools, from Cleveland High School, and then of course Independence High School. And we have grade level representatives, so teachers from 9, 10, 11, and 12th grade at each campus. And then we also have special education represented, as well as English language development. We have one of our district coordinators for ELD on the team as well. So as well as our high school instructional leaders. So our team is comprised of exceptionally knowledgeable professionals who are exploring different options for instructional materials. And just, I'm on the timeline right now, but just to kind of pull you in, we call it the instructional materials adoption because it's really, we're looking at more than just a simple textbook in terms of what we can adopt. So instructional materials as a whole, it's the package of resources that our teachers will primarily use for instruction. So a brief overview here. In the fall, we form our committee members and ensure that we have representation from all key teacher groups and campuses. The public education department actually begins reviewing materials and creates a state list of adopted materials. They did that back in the spring of 2020 and summer of 2020. So we review what they create, the list that they approved, and then we move from there. We look at our own district though, so the state is one component. We look at our priorities as an instructional team of high school teachers. And then we begin our review process using from Achieve, it's the Equip Quality Review process. And I have a link to that later on if you'd like to check that out. So we spent the fall looking at the Equip rubric and alignment to the Common Core standards. We looked at how well the materials met the shifts of Common Core, and I'll touch on that in a moment. And then we look at other things like instructional supports for special populations, how engaging it is for students, assessment and alignment. So the Equip rubric gets really robust and helps our team objectively, as much as possible, review each of the materials to see really what's best for our students. So this spring, our teachers are, as best as possible, given the unique circumstances of this adoption, they're trying to test out the materials and actually use them, and try them out with students. As we're doing right now, getting community engagement and feedback. We value your input, and that will be shared with the team. Hopefully in March, we will make a committee recommendation for principals and the chief academic officer to approve. And then the recommendation will be presented to our Rio Rancho School Board for approval. Then in the summer, we start looking at specifics for Rio Rancho Public Schools, curriculum documents, scope and sequence documents. We really look at anything that might be missing from the materials that we need to address, to make them the very best for our students and teachers. And then look forward to the implementation starting in the fall of 2021. And yes, that process is subject to change, of course, with everything being so fluid right now. So our finalists we have 3 finalists right now that the team is still currently reviewing into literature. Our focus for today, My Perspectives, which will be the last in our series. So they're in 2 weeks, and then Springboard by the College Board. And that's who I will be highlighting next week, same place, same time. The components of our evaluation, like I mentioned, we use the Equip Quality Review process, and that's really key because of looking at alignment to the Common Core state standards. So that is first and foremost what we are emphasizing as a team. The test driving of the materials. I'll show you what our team's top 5 priorities are for the materials specific to Rio Rancho. We will look at digital platforms, of course, and what's offered from the publishers there. And then we will look at the state reviews, the rubrics that they released from when their teams reviewed the materials. That's our state evidence. And then our national evidence is an organization called Ed Reports that reviews materials and provides objective reviews of what they're finding. So our team in the fall determined that our top 5 priorities for these materials in terms of the non-negotiables, what do we absolutely want to focus on first and foremost? Number 1, supports for special populations, really essential. How well are we able to scaffold and make the materials accessible for students with disabilities, our English learners, and just generally any students who need some additional support. So we are looking at what the programs offer there. Second, how culturally and linguistically responsive are the materials? This comes out of Shiraki Holly's work. So I have a link in the slides in the notes section here if you'd like to learn more about what it means to be culturally and linguistically responsive in the classroom. 3, evidence-based reading and writing. That goes right along with our Common Core shifts. And then we're looking for alignment between grade levels and within grade levels. So how well does the program tie together and how well do the standards, especially the themes, spiral across grade levels to create a really cohesive experience for our students. And then, of course, high interest text. We want to get our students engaged and interested in the reading and draw them in. So what do the programs offer in terms of a package of selections, of reading selections for our students? The digital platforms are important. You're sitting here thinking, we're doing everything virtually. How can we not look at that? We will look at digital platforms. We'll be looking at them in terms of how do the resources help us achieve our other priorities. So that's kind of the lens through which we'll be analyzing the digital platforms. The 3 shifts in ELA, once the Common Core state standards were adopted, the 3 areas that were emphasized by the standards and their development were around building knowledge through content-rich nonfiction, evidence grounded in the text, so not just kind of how you generally feel, but how well can you pull from text to back up your claims, and then the complexity of text, that we want our students to encounter with complex text and academic language on a regular basis on grade level, right, at the appropriate level, and then provide supports to fill any gaps that they may have in terms of being on grade level. So complexity, evidence, and knowledge. All right, so what you're here for today, an overview of Into Literature. So I want to take a moment before we dive in and clarify my role as a secondary curriculum and instruction coordinator in the adoption process and the information that I've prepared for you today. I am not a voting member of the adoption team. I am a facilitator. I am impartial. I am not offering any appraisals of the materials. So today, the information that I'm sharing with you is a summary of what the publisher presented last Friday, February 5th, to our adoption team. So I've rewatched that presentation and I pulled out and will emphasize what the publisher was emphasizing. So I want to be really clear that this is, I'm passing on the information that our team also, in a condensed form, of course, that our team experienced. So I am learning these materials as well. And so I will do my best. If you have program specific questions that you pop into the chat, that's great, but I may have to, just with the caveat that I may have to check with the publisher first, as we're all starting to become more familiar with specifically Into Literature, because it's not one that we've used, that we're currently using in our district. Again, if you're just now joining, here's a bit.ly to the slides. enter that into a new tab in the URL. And then I'd love for you to sign in if you missed that part at the beginning. Just optional, but I'd love to be able to connect with those of you who are joining today. Case sensitive on those. All right, so into literature. Here we go. Into literature has several program components. And so I'm going to share with you a big overview of what those program components are, and then we'll start to get into some specifics, again, as highlighted by the publisher's presentation to our team. So the program will come with a teacher edition, a consumable student edition, so similar to what students use now in ELA or did in previous years. That's a print version that is the student's own copy to write in. And there is a hardcover. I cannot tell you one way or the other which one we would get 100%, but just know that those options are there. There's the option of a grammar practice workbook, and then there's an option of purchasing novels that can accompany the program of study. There are also the publisher emphasized access to digital versions of the novels, full length, that our team has access to see how many of those would be ones that we would be interested in using. One of the other pieces that was really emphasized during the presentation last week was a partnership with Writable. And I have confirmed that this partnership with Writable would be for the duration of our adoption. So this is one of the digital components that it seems we can count on still being around, or at least some version of a Writable program for the next 6 years. So that's something that I'll touch on as well. And then the digital platform overall is called ED. So that's what we'll take a look at as well, are some of the pieces that that you're able to look at and review, and I'll help you kind of navigate your way around a little bit in the digital platform in ED. All right, so at a basic level, let's take a look at a unit in Into Literature. There are 6 units in every grade level, 9 through 12, and every unit has a similar structure. The units start with an analyze and apply, which is meant to be primarily whole group instruction. The text, there will be focus text or anchor text. And then after that, there's a collaborate and compare section, which is an emphasis on small group learning, and comparison of text. So 2 texts that might be on the same topic or theme that are related in some way that students and teachers will explore and compare. The final section in each unit is independent learning. And this section has some options for students to choose their reading and explore, again, topically and thematically related text. There will be suggested reading connections as well in every unit. So one of the key pieces here, as I'm just kind of referring to some notes from the publisher, is that consistent structure becomes predictable over the course of the year and each unit. The units are based around an essential question that thematically links the text, and that essential question is what students write to at the end of the unit. So each unit has a culminating writing task, smaller writing tasks along the way, but one major writing task at the end of the unit that students write to, and it's around the essential question. They will go through a reading, thinking, writing process when they're approaching that writing task. And there's a response log as well that helps them kind of track their thinking around that writing task throughout the unit. There is planning, drafting, revising, and editing guides Plus, you'll notice a mentor text. It's really small, but on your slides, under Collaborate and Compare, there's a little blue box. I'll kind of hover my mouse over it. Once you get into the materials, it's labeled mentor text, which means that's a model of the writing task genre that students can kind of lean into to understand, the author's, an established author's approach to that writing task. The other piece that was emphasized as a predictable component of every unit are close reading strategies called notice and note. And the notice and note reading strategy comes from the work of Kylene Beers and Bob Prost. And what this strategy does is help students to look for certain, they call them signposts in a text. So an example of one is the aha moment. So when you see an aha moment in the text, it's a signpost where you kind of pause and you ask yourself as the reader, how might this change things? Or the tough questions, how might this question, what does it make me wonder about? So these strategies, the notice and note, is a regular routine that's built into the entire program. All right. In terms of scaffolds and supports, the publishers emphasize that EL support, or English learner support, is addressed via teacher rep. So that's all the teacher notes in the teacher edition that wraps around what the students see. That there's EL support in callouts in the teacher edition. So those teachers of you who are joining me, it would be called out as like an English learner box that gives you some strategies for supporting students with specific places in the text. There is also a text x-ray, and this is basically kind of a preview of each text, each selection, that helps you see different areas where you can support students in terms of cultural references that they might be unfamiliar with, and then different levels of support for listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So there's like a more substantial support, and then moderate support, and then light support. So you can use those different strategies based on what is appropriate for your students and what they need. There is also leveled text offered on the website. There's an adapted text, which is what their term they use for the main text printed in the book, written at 2 grades below whatever the book grade level is. So if it's 9th grade, the main text is provided at a 7th grade level as well. There are supplemental level texts that are written at lower lexiles, and those are aligned with the unit's theme. So those are in addition to the main text. There are also peer coaching videos where it's actual students kind of coaching, doing think alouds, if you will, sharing their different reading strategies and kind of helping other students connect with how to tackle the text. And then I'll show this to you once we jump into the live website, into Ed. There are studio resources as well, like a grammar studio, a reading studio. So we'll take a look at where those are. These are, in a nutshell, they were described as tutorial labs in their online materials. In terms of the platform highlights, there was certainly an emphasis on that during the presentation. So I'm going to show you in the ebook where these features are. So I'm going to kind of pause here on this list, but just know that there seemed to be some emphasis on certain features in the ebook and what they offer in terms of usability and functionality. Possibly we could launch a Google Meet directly from Ed. I say possibly because that's something we'd have to talk with our IT department about, but there's that kind of opportunity for some collaboration with our other Google tools. And then that Writable partnership that I talked about at the beginning was certainly a focus of the presentation. This is a part of ED, the online platform. It's not a separate login. So I'll show you that in a moment when we go live, how that opens up directly within the platform. That Writable partnership, basically what it is an opportunity for students to submit their writing through this platform, and they can get teacher feedback and then also do anonymous peer feedback. So they basically get, and this is set up by the teacher, assigned, if you will, peer papers, peer writing to review, and but it's anonymous. So as you're reading a peer's paper, you don't know whose it is unless they identify themselves in the paper. But and so you're able to provide really well, I'll just show you guys that in a minute, but basically it helps guide students through how to offer constructive revision feedback. It includes prompts that are from the unit. There's also a bank of prompts, and then it is customizable to where teachers can add in their own prompts as well. All right, so I am going to jump into that digital platform. As we are doing this virtual open house, normally we'd provide one day when you can come in and flip through the books and see all the materials. Obviously, we're not having the opportunity to do that this year, but I like this approach because you have access for the entire month of February to review these materials digitally. Our team asks that you focus primarily on the ebook. And in this case, for Into Literature, you could look at Writable because I have received confirmation that that is for the duration of the adoption. But just know that digital features are subject to change. We can't lose functionality under the state's contract, but they can switch things out, make changes. Partnerships sometimes could change. So just know that primarily we want to look at the ebook and the content of the ebook because that's our standards bearing focus material. So that's as you're thinking about your way of providing input and feedback, we ask that you focus on the ebook. So this is directly from the flyer that went out about these open house sessions. Again, if you don't have that access, you can type in the bit.ly to these slides into a new tab in the URL address and click on these links to get in. What I'm going to show you is the Into Literature online review access flyer. That if you've looked at the flyer that district office sent out, you've seen this, but I just wanted to kind of walk you through what the directions are and how to get into the digital platform. I also, just here on this slide before I click away from it, this is a Google form link. Please, we'd love your feedback. It's very broad intentionally, just asking for what you like about the program and what you don't like about the program. And then that will go directly to our team for their consideration. All right, so I'm going to switch over to the flyer that gives you information about the digital access. So the website link here, the website address is hmhco.com. A lot of O's /1. And once you get there, you'll have to select the state, which is evaluator, and the district. So that'll take just a moment. It remembers that though every time you go in. So that's a one-time thing. And then here's your password for the teacher view and for the student view. So whichever, recommend looking at both, but if you're a community member joining us, of course, the student view would be most applicable. So I'm going to log in first to the teacher view and just showcase a couple of those things that I highlighted in terms of the platform. So I'm just going to pull up my notes right here for that and take you into ED, the online platform. So when you log in, you will see this welcome screen. It's called the dashboard. And the dashboard is your navigation place. For your purposes and for reviewing, I would skip on over to the Discover tab. The Discover tab is where you can see the ebook and all of the materials. Make this a little bit bigger for you guys. All right, so the ebook here is going to be broken out. You can jump into any unit and view the teacher or the student edition from your teacher edition login. So one of the things that I was going to highlight for you guys is what a passage looks like. And so I'm going to go into the teacher's edition of lesson 1. And this is 12th grade. It's a Beowulf. And you'll notice it opens this up in a new tab. So you'll have your Discover tab, your navigation, and then you'll have whatever ebook piece that you opened up. Under the table of contents, I can go down to that selection. And I'm just going to open up one of the places where we're reading. One of the things that was emphasized is that as you scroll through, you'll notice that there are questions, the analyze, annotate and analyze, or annotate and interpret. The close reading questions are built in at point of use in the text. And so this in the print book, these will be on the margins, the side margins at relevant places. But instead of them, in a digital view, instead of it showing up at the end, they'll be at specific stopping places to get students to stop and engage in the text. This place where the students type is viewable by teachers in real time. It saves automatically, and teachers have a location in the teacher view of student books. And there are annotation features and read aloud, so we can highlight, underline, add notes, and then there is audio of the text. Okay, so you can play around with that and what the audio sounds like when you're in the ebook. There is a connection with Google Classroom where assignments in specific places in the ebook can be assigned and shared via Google Classroom. It doesn't reproduce them similar to what you see now. It's a link basically for students to be dropped into a specific assignment in the Ed platform. And then one of the other features is that there is an app that allows students to have online and offline access to the reading. So it saves everything offline, and then when students get connectivity again, then it syncs. And so that was one of the other things that was emphasized. All right, I am going to close out this tab and go back to our and head back into the bottom here. When you scroll down under resources, here are those studios that I referenced. The grammar studio, these are the tutorial labs, if you will. And then some other different pieces that are available as supplementals. Again, all of that content is subject to change. And typically we do see, of course, publishers over 6 years with digital materials. Things change quickly in 6 years, so you'll see that they attempt to make it improved as we go through the duration of an adoption. All right, the other piece I wanted to showcase for you is the Writable, and that is here in the unit writing tasks. So when you open the unit writing tasks, you'll see a new tab open, and it brings you to the Writable app. So the students did not, and teachers don't have to log in separately. It is a new tab, but it is part of that login. And for us as a Clever district, we would use the Clever single sign-on, as students are used to already right now. So here you'll see the unit assignments. So that's built in from the unit prompts. Here's the customizable content where you can create your own writing prompt that then students can submit through this platform. And then there are also other places here, writing assignments that you can explore. So students submit, and this is a demo, so I don't have any specific samples that I can show you, but you can kind of play around, teachers, and if you go into the student login, you can play around with what this kind of looks like and the functionality of it. So again, the idea is that you would create your writing piece as a student, submit it, the teacher can engage in feedback, and then your peers can engage in feedback. So this is one of those partnerships that is offered. All right, and then the other piece that I wanted to offer is the Google Meet piece. We talked about that being just a possibility. All right, so I'm going to close out of Writable. Right now I'm back on the teacher view. I'm going to click over where I've logged in from that online access flyer as a student, and this is what it looks like. Here's your dashboard, very similar. You have assignments and scores in that same Discover tab. So the Discover tab is really key in terms of your ability to review the materials and provide feedback. You click on Discover, and then again, you can jump into any unit, see what selections are offered, and kind of dig into the ebook. This is what's considered the ebook a little bit more. So that's a quick overview of highlights from the publisher's presentation, and we've walked through how to access it, primarily the ebook materials, and then Writable as well. And I'm going to come back over here to our slides and wrap up. I will take questions at this time. And let me go back over. This is just a unique experience for me to do a live stream. So I'm excited to see what questions we have. So let me find that right place here. No questions so far. So I will hold off for just a moment. If you have any questions, you can pop those into the chat. This recording will be available. So if you're joining at a later time and it's not during the live stream, first of all, thank you for your time and interest in our high school ELA instructional materials process. We value your feedback and your input so much. Our team looks forward to hearing what you think. I am always available via email. Shoot me your questions there. If something comes up later, you're digging into the materials and you have a question that's specific about any one of the three, but for this session into literature, please email me, Kristen, 2 I's, .oliver@rrps.net, and I would love to hear from you. So at this time, that concludes our presentation, and I look forward to seeing you all next week for the second part in our series on the instructional materials adoption, where we will highlight Springboard and the 2021 edition that our team is reviewing. Thank you.